just like we're figuring out how to use AI in marketing, how to use AI in product development, so are every other company. So it's a level playing field, and it's first come, first serve, and I think it's a limited time offer.
Welcome to Direct Approach, a bi-weekly podcast hosted by Wayne Moorehead, filled with timely insights, fresh perspectives, and actionable takeaways from your direct selling executive peers to help fuel the growth and evolution of your business. Why do 50% of direct selling companies remain stuck in early stage digital transformation? And how can AI agents become force multipliers that help build faster, leaner organizations while empowering field partners? In this episode, Wayne sits down with Peter Griscom, President and COO of It Works, to explore how his company is implementing AI at scale across every function. Drawing from real-world implementation experience, discover the practical framework for self-funded reinvestment, personalized coaching, and competitive advantage in the AI era. But before we begin, we'd like to thank this episode's sponsor, Impact Health Sharing.
Hello, everyone. This is Shelly Rojas with Impact Health Sharing. You know, healthcare has always been a challenge for direct sellers, and especially right now, America's healthcare system is at a crossroads. It's challenging and it's changing fast, with experts predicting that many may see double-digit increases in their monthly premiums this coming year. But at Impact, we've never issued a universal price increase in over our 5 years in business, and we continue to add value at no extra cost to our members. For your field, they could save up to 50% a month by switching to Impact, and our exclusive wellness rewards works perfectly with so many of your auto ship programs, helping your field save even more just for continuing to buy the products they already love. For you, it's a simple way to offer your field a possible solution to a real problem without adding any cost or headcount to your business.
Now let's welcome your host, Wayne Moorehead, and his guest, Peter Griscom.
Hello and welcome to another episode of DSN's Direct Approach podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Moorehead, and today's guest is a transformative executive, investor, and turnaround expert with more than 15 years of experience across various areas, including healthcare, manufacturing, technology, and consumer goods. He has developed over 1,000 natural products and won multiple Product of the Year awards. He holds a Master of Science and is currently pursuing a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology. Very impressive. I'm excited to welcome Peter Griscom, President and COO at It Works. Peter, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to join you today.
Yeah, I've really been looking forward to this conversation. Loved what you shared at DSU. I know we're going to dig in a little bit deeper on that today. But can you start out taking us through a little bit of the path that led you into direct selling and to It Works?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was really fortunate at a young age to figure out what I liked, and that was always health and wellness and health products. My first job was at a GNC when I was 16. So this is all I've ever done from the very beginning. And when I realized I wasn't going to go to the Olympics for track and field, I decided to turn my focus into dietary supplements and trying to turn it into a business. And I was fortunately pretty successful at that early in life. And so when I sold that business when I was 24, I happened to be out in Utah at the time, skiing, enjoying myself. And I got introduced to then COO at Zingular, Jeff Wilson, who brought me in to help with products. And the rest is history. I mean, I fell in love with the channel, and I've been in and out of the channel since then. But really that experience getting to, be underneath the transformative leadership of, Mark Walker and Rudy Revac and that group was really awesome. And then I left the channel for a period of time. I was doing manufacturing, running a business in that space. And then when I exited that, I ran a business in the healthcare space for a couple of years. And then I came back into the business with Manatech and just have been in ever since and been loving every minute of it.
Well, I love that story. And I think that at Zingular is where I first came into contact with you many years ago. I think I was helping them on an initiative, but Rudy and the team there are really incredible. And I didn't get the chance to really know you well until a little bit later, but I had always heard your name whispered in reverent tones around the product expertise and just the incredible way that you approach the business. And so I'm really looking forward to getting to know you even better today, but have loved the last couple of years getting to interact with you a little bit more. I think that you really exemplify what is needed today from corporate leaders, from corporate executives. And that's mostly that no matter what background or discipline we come through, you through the product, me through marketing and others, it's really critical for our leaders and executives to be technology driven, AI driven in order to succeed in today's landscape and really help our organizations do the same. And I know that you're going through an incredible transformation technology wise from an AI perspective there at It Works, and excited to learn more. As I mentioned, you gave a couple presentations at DSU. They were among the most highly rated, the best attended. I loved the insights, the approaches, the framework that you presented. You put it together in a really practical way that allowed us to understand how to quickly implement that into our business and scale it throughout our organization. So let's dig in today. And I'd love to start with a paper, an article that you wrote, and you start out talking about the digital divide. And there's a really interesting statistic there. 50% of direct selling companies remain in the early stages of digital transformation. Can you share more on this and how we have allowed ourselves to get so behind the curve where we've been so innovative on the product front, on the business model front, but have definitely kind of lagged behind on the digital transformation? Can you share some thoughts on this?
Yeah, that coming into the business, not starting off my career or even as an entrepreneur, starting in direct sales and seeing what was going on outside and the innovation and then coming in, it felt like taking a step back in some regards, even, back in 2012, 2013, 2014. And I think that trend has largely continued. There's a lot of really amazing innovation when you look at, to your point, product, but a lot of network marketing companies, when you look at where they invest, they're not investing in marketing in the way that you would see in a direct-to-consumer business, an e-commerce business, a retail business even. They're not investing in technology in the same way that those companies would. And so what you wind up with is now a playing field where we're all kind of equal to some extent, right? We're all on the same social channels. We're all showing up in the same searches on ChatGPT. And so the divide between the brands is indistinguishable. And then when you click out to a network marketing company's website, or when you look at how they're advertising, it feels 15 years ago, which automatically takes away from credibility. And there are very few companies that have taken a tech forward approach or have taken a modern approach to that. And that was one of my biggest gripes with the industry. And one of the reasons why I was so frustrated, I just said, you know what, this is not for me anymore. Because I wanted to get out in front and innovate it. And when AI, and everything that was happening with AI started to really impact direct sales, that to me felt like a unique opportunity for the entire industry to catch back up to where I would say direct to consumer, e-commerce, et cetera, are all functioning. And usually when I look at this, I would say most of the underinvestment is because you have a sales force, right? So you have a group that's doing advertising on your behalf, that's talking about your product. You have word of mouth marketing. And so there's been a hesitancy to take away and add additional spend when you're saying, well, hey, I don't spend on ads because I've got all these distributors, partners, whatever you want to call them. And I think that's a little backwards. And I think that's now limiting the reach of a lot of companies and causing them to be in decline despite amazing products. So it's a unique moment and you have a unique opportunity to catch up. Because just like we're figuring out how to use AI in marketing, how to use AI in product development, so are every other company. So it's a level playing field and it's first come, first serve. And I think it's a limited time offer.
Yeah, I agree. It's been one of my soapboxes as well, having spent a number of years at rapidly growing D2C brands and then coming back into the channel and just feeling really constrained in some of the marketing capabilities. And I think part of it also was this sense of perceived channel conflict, that if we do a lot of these basics from a digital marketing standpoint, we may be competing with our field. But I do love that the tide has definitely turned on that. And we have brand partners now and distributors that are demanding that we up our digital game, that all of our transactions, all of our digital experiences are just as good, if not better than any other website, than any other brand that they shop from. And I'm seeing a quick race, luckily, I think, for all of us to catch up. And I think it's one of the great opportunities that we have. What role do you see agentic AI playing in bridging this gap with the digital divide?
Really, for the first couple of years of AI, it was a really powerful and interesting and sometimes wrong, a lot of times wrong search engine. And then we started to get additional capabilities, whether it be voice, whether it be speeding up, various image creation. And, it started to become useful, but it took a while. Most of the early quote unquote AI was really machine learning that was being applied to things like, we were using it for supply chain, for example, to do better forecasting. And that's really not generative AI. That was just, again, like I said, machine learning models. We still use those type of things for churn. With agentic, the whole landscape has shifted underneath our feet in a really powerful way, in that small, scrappy teams can now have these agents that act as force multipliers. And when I describe an agent to people, the number one thing that I talk about is the ability to utilize tools and different technologies within your tech stack. So ideally, if you have a customer service agent, that is not the same thing as a customer service bot. What we were building a year ago was a customer service bot. It had a static knowledge base. It would recall from that knowledge base and say, oh yeah, let me tell you about our amazing XYZ product, right? And that was useful and helpful and definitely solved for 20 to 25% of those queries. Now you get much more specific with an agent, because an agent you can call up and say, what does my volume look like this month? Do I need to do anything? Can I place this person in XYZ place? And instead of having to transfer you to a human to do that, the agent can now call that tool. So if you're looking at someone like us who uses Exigo as a back office, or if you use Infotrax, you imagine this autonomous agent is now taking the phone call, it's creating a ticket, it's accessing Exigo or whatever your back office system is, retrieving information, making changes, all independently within the guardrails. And that becomes a force multiplier because that exists across all departments, right? Customer service is an easy example because oftentimes there's a lot of tools that are called within that one function, but it's similarly true when you think about marketing. One of the ways that we're using it now is we have all of these different platforms, and we take, I would call it a very experimentation-driven approach, where we want to see every different platform, whether it be Feedbird or whether we're, using one of these new ones that's in Y Combinator that's doing AI-generated ads, whatever it is. We have an agent layer that oversees those and is comparing constantly the ROI and adjusting the spend accordingly with what's performing better. So now all of a sudden you're getting these agents that are coordinating your technology platforms or even coordinating other agents, and you're able to build teams. And they're very focused teams right now, but it's going to expand as we go. And that is going to change the landscape, because when you look at a typical network marketing company, we don't have the budget, like we're paying whatever the commission, 40%, in some cases higher, to distributors. So we don't have the budget to necessarily go out and hire performance marketing, incredible talent, and spend a ton of money there. So we need to get every ounce of return we can. And similarly, we're not going to go hire someone for conversion rate optimization. We're not going to go do necessarily all these things that you would typically see in DTC. Well, now we don't have to. We can build agents that are trained to go do those things for us on our behalf and managed by our existing team. And that has been a game changer because it speeds up velocity and allows us to take those limited dollars and then apply them more effectively. So I think it is going to be the accelerant that our industry needs very badly.
Yeah, and do you feel that Well, let's get in a little bit to kind of enhance versus replace. So with AI and the increasing adoption of it, there is a worry around it replacing jobs, it replacing and displacing people. How do you approach it? Is it really enhance or is it replace? We've seen a lot of recent tech layoffs. What do you feel the reality of this is?
I think it would be foolish to say it's going to be one or the other. Specifically, I think it's both. Unfortunately, for people that are doing, this repeatable work, those are things that have been, automatable for a long time, whether it be through, RPA or something of the sort. So there was always going to be this coming wave where, customer service particularly, or back office functions like, commissions, reviews, that was always going to be something that was eventually handled by either software, whether it be process automation or whether it be AI. So I think those roles, which for some companies are a substantial portion, hundreds of thousands, if not more, millions of dollars, compliance, things like that, those are going to be things where it will be replaced. Because if you looked at how you define value, right, in direct sales, and I think about it in everything in the context of these value streams, we define value as anything that is moving the needle for the customer or is moving the needle for the distributor. And when we look at things that are non-value added activities or they're value added activities that we can automate, that's where we want to take the cost out. And there may not be the need for the human in the loop, so to speak. So with customer service, for example, we will still always have those VIP reps to handle those, top end distributors who need that human touch. We want to create wow service, give them gifts, do all those fun things. That is not going away. But the hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on just answering, hey, where's my order? Or answering, what about this product? That goes away. And the need for live translation services, that goes away. And the need for, ongoing, 10 people in compliance using a bit of software, that goes away. So that's going to be replaced. And then when you talk about augment, I think it's everybody. I mean, we have a goal to have 3 agents for every single employee, including executives, right? That's a goal. It's a stated goal. And towards that goal, we've created a role that we call, Director of Applied AI. And the job of that individual, who is very skilled in all of this, is to build that future forward technology stack to allow us to get there so that we can augment. But it's the role of every single employee to figure out how AI and agents can make them better and make them more efficient, because we're also very conscious that there's a lot of waste in our model, and every bit of waste limits our spend on things like ads that soften the beaches for our distributors.
Yeah, I want to talk about the waste and efficiency there. You've spoken about the real value of AI is going to be a faster, leaner organization. Can you expand on that and the different ways that we are going to be able to be more efficient? You've touched a little bit on some of the ad spend and things like that, but what are some of the other aspects and functions that'll be impacted?
I mean, I think it's universal across the entire organization. One of the biggest bits of waste, most people think about it unilaterally in the context of where I'm wasting money. And you also have to think about the other forms of waste, whether it be overproduction, right? I'm producing too many marketing assets that are not being utilized. And who's monitoring all those marketing assets to make sure they're being utilized by the right people in the right channel in the right place? That's a constant problem across every company I've ever been at, is we're making too much of things that are not getting used. And that creates this launch it and leave it mentality. So AI is going to help us eliminate and is helping us eliminate waste there, because we're able to more effectively monitor, and then going through that constant improvement process of saying, let's just not do this part anymore. Similarly, things like waiting, right? The time gaps. So, if you submit a contract for approval and you're ready to go on something, and then it has to go to legal and it's 3 weeks later, that's all of that time is waste, right? That's all just teams' resources where they're not moving on that project. AI is going to pull that slack tighter. And my goal, which is not realistic, but it's my goal, is to have zero slack throughout the entire organization, right? So things are just flowing seamlessly through these value streams, creating positive outcomes for distributors and for customers. So that's an area where I think especially waste will be removed. I think defects is another one. Now you could argue how a lot of people are using AI, it's creating more defects, depending on what sort of tools you're using and how you're using them. But I think there are a number of defects, typically speaking, when you look at smaller teams and they're reviewing packaging or they're reviewing bits of marketing collateral, another set of eyes to prevent that waste where you have to pull something down and then redo it is critical. And same thing with technology when you're deploying new technology. So you could just go down the list and you would say, there's areas everywhere from product development all the way through to finance, all the way through into field enablement, where there's just an abundance of waste, right? We're not doing things that are scalable, that are repeatable, that are creating outsized value for the field. And so those things should go away and be replaced with something that is. So I would tell you those are the biggest areas. Monetary waste, the biggest areas we're seeing monetary waste typically when I've done this before is in product, right? Carrying too much product, supply chain related challenges. A lot of the forecasting companies in our industry do is based on spreadsheets. It's based on sales leaders' forecasts, which are not terribly accurate. And so getting to an accurate forecast so you can keep your inventory levels in check and free up cash is critical. Customer service is a big one. IT is a big one. You're going to have less, but much more efficient IT organizations. So there's a lot of waste that's getting pulled out. We're able to reduce SG&A 35-40% and improve our throughput by multiples, not just by a little bit, but by multiples through the use of agentic AI, RPA, all of this.
So you went through a pretty comprehensive list right there of different ways that it can impact and help create efficiencies throughout the organization. Taking a step back for a moment, is that where we're at today? We hear a lot of discussions around AI as the promise of AI, of what AI will do. Are those AI tools and platforms available to implement and get real value out of today?
Yes, definitively yes. I would tell you most of it depends on your organization's setup and how you've structured your IT, because you don't want to create a shadow IT organization where people are just plugging in tools to your data without permission and all of that. But when you look at some of these tools that sit independent, you can gain the value, in supply chain today, and as you could a year ago by signing up for something like Fleber, which is AI powered, demand forecasting and demand planning and purchase orders. You can automate the number of people that you require in supply chain to solve issues with something like a back ops, right? Which will take a phone call, create a ticket, call your warehouse for you, all of this through AI, close the ticket once it's done. There's a lot of these things that are already there. You do have to stitch them together. Unfortunately, there is no one solution. It's not like you can just, say, I'm going to use exclusively OpenAI related products and that's it. The reason why we're at the age of agents is because you have to call a multitude of tools. Just like you or I are in and out of different systems all day, you're going to have to access those systems. And it does require at this point a level of forethought into how your data is structured, into what tools at what levels you want access to it. And that requires, I would say, a little bit more expertise. But some of these things, like almost all of the marketing related AI tools, can be plugged into your existing architecture fairly easily and can be implemented today to drive outsized value, especially when you look at the ad side of things, when you look at merchandising, when you look at conversion rate optimization. If you're on Shopify, for example, you could turn on Triple Whale right now and it's going to act as a CRO for you. So it's going to go through your website and comb it for conversion rate optimization opportunities without you doing anything other than just turning on this app, right? So there's a lot of these things that are just right there for you to take. There are other things that take more time. If you want a true customer service agent and not a bot, that's not an overnight deliverable.
Yes, it's amazing now what can be done. Still, I think just with the speed that it's happening, I know that our adoption here in the channel over the next 6 to 12 months, what we're going to be able to do is incredible. As far as the value creation, I heard you talk about 3 areas field excellence, AI-enabled leverage, and self-funded reinvestment. Can we go through those starting with field excellence?
Yeah, so field excellence is this concept that I happen to, I don't want to say come up with, but synthesize from really wonderful thought leaders in our space, whether that be the likes of Al Bala or Rudy Rivak or Stan Frederick, people that know the space really well and have been around the space. And so when I think about our growth engine, all of it relies on field excellence. And so my belief is that when we're able to take waste out, whether that be waste in human capital hours, right, spent on things that don't drive value, whether that be dollars, whatever it may be, that we are reinvesting in field excellence at every single corner we can. So where do those savings go? Maybe you're adding, new apps for the field, whether it's an AI assistant. Maybe you're increasing a payout temporarily to get them moving. Maybe it's running some extra special Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Maybe it's AI-enabled coaching for them that's personal to them, that's contextualized on their data, right? Looking at their specific organization and what they need to do. Those are all investments in field excellence. And when I think about field excellence, that is a field that is highly capable, that's motivated, and that's loyal, right? Because we're living up to our side of it. And I believe that most people don't fail in network marketing because of just a lack of will. I think a lot of it is the roadblocks that exist that we have inadvertently created or not removed that stop them from being successful. So when we remove that friction from their work for field excellence, we increase their financial upside. We help them build those necessary skills, whether it be recruiting, retention, whether it be developing other leaders underneath them. And then we recognize them effectively at the right time, right? Contextualizing when we recognize them, I think, is one of the things that's going to be an absolute game changer and probably an often ignored area of this. That's the formula for field excellence. And then when you look at the others, AI-enabled leverage to me is really all about, the right tool, system, or agent in the right place to amplify your existing team, right? You're not going to have overnight a team that is ready to use everything that's in the market. So you're going to have to take baby steps depending on the competency and the willingness of your team to come along with you on this journey and giving them that right tool at the right place. And for some people, that's going to be saving them a few hours a week. For your organization, it may even be saving a few, thousand or hundreds of thousands, just depends. But it's that leverage that gives you something back, which then lends itself to that self-funded reinvestment where you're dropping that AI-driven operational savings into those field-facing investments. So instead of taking it out, right, which is what a lot of companies would do typically in cost savings initiatives, drop it right back in. And the way that we're thinking about that is those things that we talked about, whether it be ads, whether it be creative investments, whether it be new product investments, that's a big piece of it, a big chunk of it to say, how do we best soften the beaches for our field so when they're out there in this competitive landscape, that they get the recognition and attention necessary to draw someone in and have them buy our product, right? And that's ultimately that virtuous cycle that we're trying to create, which is, that leverage and waste removal creates those free dollars. We reinvest into field excellence. Field excellence grows the business, and then we do the same cycle all over again. And we're just constantly looking for waste. We're constantly looking for ways to improve.
So I want to double click on the reinvestment model, kind of turning those savings really into growth. You touched on a couple there, but where would you or where are you concentrating a lot of those reinvestment dollars? Is it tools for distributors? Is it putting it back in the compensation plan? What are some of the areas that you're using to fuel the growth?
I think it's going to be specific to the individual business, right? I mean, if you were to look at It Works, I would tell you, we know where our problems typically lie. We bring in a lot of people, but we don't have as solid of a retention program as a lot of other companies do. So where we're reinvesting is retention because we know that that's going to increase check sizes. So whether that be retargeting ads, whether that be improving the back office experience for customers, whether that be reducing ship times, all of these things play a role, and we're looking for marginal gains specifically in retention. So for us right now, that looks like making that, we call it perks member, making that program richer, right? Making it more rewarding to partner with us, whether that be partnerships with outside companies, whether that be, again, we're reinvesting and overhauling our entire email system to make it more scalable for what we need to do in the future. We're also running retargeting ads, which is not something we've done before, in a lot of different places. And we're giving our community more places to transact. So instead of making it exclusive to you have to come to our website, allowing them the opportunity to transact with us where they are, whether that be WhatsApp, whether that be on TikTok Shop, whatever it is. Those are the kind of capabilities we know that will enhance retention. So that's where we're focused. If you looked at other businesses, maybe where recruiting is a challenge, then I would tell you that the investment and the spend would be different. And everything is geared around that, right? So those savings are not just going into tools, are not just going into programs. It's also going to how we compensate the field and how we coach the field around retention, because it has to be a uniform program. And every business has different challenges. So those operational savings will get, I would say, directed in different places. If you're not growing fast enough and you need to grow faster, then there's probably going to be a more heavy emphasis on sales and marketing and, recruiting incentives for your field, and also enabling them with better tools, whether that be, a new mobile app, or in my opinion, a better mobile app, or even not a mobile app, maybe it's chat-based, whatever it is, things that take the friction out of their job. My ultimate vision with that is, if you looked at your goal, if our goal was to compete with like the Nestle Health Sciences of the world or the AG1s of the world, then we need a situation where somebody can discover us on social media, ChatGPT, wherever they're going to discover us, transact with us, receive their package within a couple of days, right? While the excitement's high, try the product, have an experience right away. Then they need to be able to share that product and earn something. And you need to compress that timeline to less than a week. Because if I wanted to be an affiliate and I was qualified to be an affiliate with some of these companies, then I could sign up and I could make money in less than a week, right? And for a lot of direct sellers right now, that's not possible. And it's not easy. You got to explain comp plans, all these things. So simple, fast, convenient. We want to compress that time frame down. And everybody has an area where that flywheel breaks. And for us right now, it's retention. For other companies, it's recruiting. For others, it may be, something related with product. It just depends.
Are you ready to revolutionize the way your direct selling company accesses industry insights? Introducing the DSN Library's Smart Search, an AI-powered tool that puts over 2,000 curated assets at your fingertips. From compensation trends to emerging markets, answers are just a click away. If you're already a DSN supporter, then you have access to Smart Search right now. If not, it's time to check out our updated program. Starting at just $1,000 per month, your entire company can get access to the channel's most comprehensive collection of education and insights available. Visit directsellingnews.com/supporter to see a demo of Smart Search in action and to learn how your company can become a supporter now. We also invite you to join us at the Future of Commerce Deep Dive event, where we tackle the critical question, what's the right choice for your company? With countless platforms, partners, and promises competing for your attention, clarity is harder to find than ever. This event is designed to help you cut through the noise and make informed decisions that drive growth and innovation in your business. Join us to explore cutting-edge e-commerce solutions, gain actionable insights, and connect with industry leaders shaping the future of commerce. Visit dsnevents.com today for details.
So you mentioned retargeting ads. I'm curious how you're approaching this. Again, it's table stakes in the D2C world. There aren't many direct selling companies that are doing this. I'm curious how you're approaching this, how the field has received this. Are you focused more on kind of your warm audience, driving AOV and LTV to existing customers, and brand partners helping, increase value for the existing distributor? Are you going after cold audiences? I'd love to know more on this because I think this is a really timely conversation.
Yeah, of course. So with us, when we look at retargeting, like the easiest and lowest hanging fruit is to go after customers who've come, added it to their cart, and haven't completed the transaction. So a distributor's told them about it. We can follow their kind of traffic in Google Analytics and say, okay, a distributor has sent them to the website. They've looked around, they've added it to cart, but then they haven't completed, or maybe they've hit a PDP page, that product page, and they haven't gone to add to cart. So we're going to contextualize a retargeting ad for that person to draw them back. We're just making that spend happen, and it's being attributed when they transact, and a lot of them are transacting. It's being attributed to the distributor because we're using programmatic attribution there to make sure that the distributor, no matter what, always gets credit. But then there's this whole other list of people who bought and they passed this threshold where they're likely an inactive customer. They haven't bought in 90 days or whatever the number is for your specific business. We're also running retargeting ads to those people. And then we're also going out and running cold ads, like awareness ads as well. And each one of them we're doing in different places. And that just has to do with our demographics. So almost all of our, I should say not almost, all of our retargeting ads are being done on Meta, right? We were doing a lot of Google display before. There was a good return on ad spend, but that was all brand spend. And I would tell you, it was really just bringing people back to the site. And we realized, okay, we don't really have an issue with that. We can do that with email just as effectively as we could with ads. So we're going to focus our email strategy on those customers who are actively buying, and we're just trying to increase and get one more order, or we're trying to get them to try a new product or increase AOV or whatever it may be. The people that we want to get are the people that a DT spent time, or that maybe they've been following this person and they're just not quite ready to buy. So we realized, hey, we need to get a few more touches with this person. And the DT may have said, or the distributor may have said, never mind, right? They may have just given up on that. We think we can follow up with the touches, right? Because if we were to guesstimate, right, you're talking like 30 to 40 touches before somebody converts, sure, typically in an e-commerce funnel. So how many times did that distributor talk to that person? Not 40, I guarantee you that, right? And how many times do they see the social post? Probably not 40. So we want to be that partner to help them get that person closed. And then for the cold ads, we're running those exclusively on TikTok because that is where we believe we have the most white space at the moment, or blue ocean, right? We believe that there's an ability for us to spin there and draw people in on TikTok in a way that we haven't done previously. And the Meta algorithm hasn't been our friend when it comes to going after cold audiences. So that's why we're focused on TikTok. And then some other sites, some of these other newer ones like Lemonade and other things that are part of that TikTok ecosystem. YouTube ads is a new one that we've started up again. But yeah, we're very aggressive with it. We're ramping up spend as quickly as we can because I believe, if we can help one distributor close one more customer and increase their check, man, they're excited. And they have received it really well. Like they're sending us screenshots saying, look, I saw this ad, I saw this in my feed. They're excited about that.
I love that they're being open and receptive, especially on the cold or the prospecting ads. Did you have to have any conversations ahead of time to let leadership or anybody know, hey, this is what we're going to be doing? You're going to start seeing some of these ads, some of this more top of funnel marketing. Did you have to educate the field similarly as so many direct selling companies had to around the need for Amazon?
Yeah, and it's always an important thing to bring them along so we don't violate their trust. And yes, we did, but it was much, our demographics skew younger. So they were like, why have you not been doing this before? Yeah. There wasn't really any pushback, so to speak. And we were very clear that we were attributing any sale where someone comes through, or even at any point in their journey, clicks a distributor's link, they or uses their name at checkout, whatever, they're going to get credit. We're not splitting it between us and them. We're not doing any of that house account. If they at all interact with a distributor and we have a way to attribute that properly, then we will give them credit for that sale, regardless of whether we spent $10 or $50 acquiring that customer.
I love that. And I'm excited to hear more. We're going to touch on another location that you'll be speaking here this month about the future of commerce, and excited to learn more from you on that. But thank you for being out in front, leading the way. I know a lot of companies are watching what you're doing. And I do believe, again, one of my soapboxes has been that the future of our channel lies somewhere at the intersection of direct selling and direct to consumer. And there's so much we can do to add value and help build our distributors' businesses through these marketing efforts. Getting back to some of the reinvestment, some of the value adds, you talked about training and coaching, and that's one of the most overlooked, and it gets lost in many of our companies, even though I think we felt it was one of our great strengths, our superpowers, but maybe that we've kind of taken our eye off the ball on that a little bit. Can you talk about how AI can help support the training, the coaching, and the onboarding going forward?
Yeah, I mean, this would be one of those things where when you look at certain companies and certain groups, they have fantastic duplication systems, and there is an element of personal development right alongside the business development, and it just creates this self-reinforcing virtuous cycle where people are with you not necessarily because of the products or even the money that they're making, but it's the person that they're becoming. And I've always really believed that that's one of the most interesting and probably the most critical piece of what we do, because it creates that community, right? These like-minded individuals striving to be better versions of themselves, whether it be health, whether it be their wealth, whatever it is. And with AI, one of the things that's interesting is we no longer have to look and say, everybody should read this book or everybody should focus on this thing this month. The personalization at scale that's available to you with the amount of information that you have and the cost to access that information dropping daily and use that information effectively to serve up timely, contextualized, personalized advice is incredible. It's in a place it's never been. And you could quickly go today and you could go to something like Dante and drop in a bunch of thoughts about personal development, your comp plan, your products, whatever. And the output that you get is light years better than anybody else's personal development or coaching even 2 years ago, right? And that's not even contextualized based on the individual's data. If you've gotten to the level where you have created agents, right? And we have one that's in beta right now that can access all of that distributor's data about their recruiting, about their retention, about what products they're selling, about the average order value for their customers. So it is coaching you based on your information. And then also has the ability to say, this book aligns with our culture. This story is something that you should be talking about based on where you're at, or talk to this person to get better at this thing. That allows you to create a hyper-personalized plan for each and every distributor to develop more effectively. And one of the most common use cases, I mean, just for prevalence sake, of ChatGPT is almost like a therapist or a coach or something of that sort. That's how a lot of people use it. If they don't use it like Netflix for entertainment, a lot of people use it like a coach or like a therapist or something of the sort. You can take that and take it all the way through to say, let's contextualize it based on your data, based on what you did last month, based on the demographics we know about your audience, and say, hey, when you recommend products to a new person, you should talk to them about this. And oh, hey, your recruiting's down. Have you checked out this book, right? Whether it be something specific to network marketing or whether it be something about visualizing the future, talking about Think and Grow Rich. You can incorporate all of that into a simple co-pilot that is their one-to-one coaching for each and every distributor. And I think that's a game changer. I think that allows you to move people through, and as they check off levels, as they achieve new levels, they're serious, then you can put them into one-on-one coaching. And it prevents this whole sort of getting lost in the crowd scenario. If somebody wants the development, it's there for them to be served to them, contextualized to them. And I think that's going to be a huge force multiplier for leaders, especially, who are wasting their time, creating that waste with people that are never going to do the things that they ask them to do. So it's going to free up leaders more than it is even the individual distributors.
You also talk about one of the great areas that it's going to add value is around retention. And you talk about providing the right nudges at the right time. Can you share a little more on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things. I mean, we've talked about this before. I think when you're coming from direct to consumer, there are very key indicators in a customer's life cycle of whether or not they're going to repurchase, what their intent signals are. network marketing typically hasn't done any of that, right? It's fallen on the distributor. That's your customer, you keep them. And that we just know it doesn't work. With the amount of demands that are on a distributor's time to go out and recruit, to develop, to do all of these things, retention oftentimes falls by the wayside. And we have at our fingertips more powerful predictive algorithms for churn than we've ever had. And you can plug in a lot of them with very little effort. If you're on some of these major e-commerce platforms, there's things like Churn Key. There's again, you can go to something like a Triple Whale and you can look for churn indicators. There's what Aptor is doing for us, where they're doing predictive churn analytics and looking at 100 plus different indicators based on behavioral indicators. Those are all machine learning algorithms that are trained on your specific data set to predict churn and then drive action based on that prediction. So there are behavioral patterns that will show up, and they can analyze that data in real time and then spit back out a churn prediction and the next best action. The most important thing about that is historically, when those type of algorithms were run, it was static. We ran it one time and it didn't change. But the pace at which consumer behavior is shifting and the way that they're interacting with us is shifting so frequently that running it continuously, like somebody like an Aptor does, that is incredibly valuable, because we know that that's going to be a ever improving model that, yeah, we'll get it right the first time and we're going to see a huge uplift, 10, 15% in retention, but then it's going to continually improve over time based on, continuous data inputs, right? So that in and of itself is incredibly valuable. And then I also think when you look at this, again, it's not just about static, like, do we email this person? Do we tell their upline, right? I mean, you look at Hustle and they've pushed out those pulse notifications, which are great. That's a wonderful addition to that app that allows you to give someone an action based on whether someone's canceled or changed something. Those are all parts of it, but it's really that multi-touch orchestration. And I think this is the thing where I know you've been saying this for years, other people have been saying this for years, that, it's not a one and done. There's not one touch point. There's a myriad of touch points. So we hit them with the email first because they hear from us. Then the upline reaches out to them. So we send them a notification to say, hey, you should reach out to this person. They're at risk of churning. And then we hit them with an ad. And then we hit them with another email. And maybe there's an escalating offer involved to get them to buy again because we believe they're going to churn. And then we save them and that process starts over, right? Or they churn and a new process starts as a result. That in and of itself is just best in class e-commerce, which is our first pillar when we look at what we're trying to accomplish. I would tell you that if you're not focused on retention with these AI tools, you're missing a huge opportunity, because your distributors just don't have time to focus on it in a way that the company can systematize and scale something that can.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't have the ability to understand all of the intent, all of the interactions, all of the behavior-based triggers that we can help implement and deploy to support retaining and increasing the value of their customers and brand partners. I want to start shifting into how best to apply it, kind of the mindset that we all need to have as we bring this deeper into our organizations. And you speak about building a Kaizen AI mindset, and you touched on 4 key pillars. Do you mind going into those briefly?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when you talk about, continuous improvement as a mentality in a business, a lot of us are familiar with lean. We've looked at lean. People have constrained lean or agile to software and lean to manufacturing. And really, when you look at this, it's really how you approach your business. The ChatGPT version that you have today is not the same one that came out in 2023 or 2024. It's totally different. It's constantly changing. And therefore, if that's constantly changing and, social platforms, TikTok and all these other things constantly changing, we have to be constantly changing and improving as well. We cannot be static. And a lot of companies are static. They're reliable, but they're static. So you have to take a AI first, a technology first approach, an experimentation approach to everything that you do. So I first and foremost would say you have to become somebody who is experimenting yourself, right? As you said at the beginning, I'm not a tech. I mean, I guess you could say now I may be a technologist, but I'm not a technologist by background. I've been involved in software companies before, but I'm not a software developer, and yet I'm out here building software and apps and programs and things for fun because the technology now exists for me to do that. I would tell everybody they need to focus in on becoming the bleeding edge experimenter themselves in a safe way, and I think that's critical. I would tell you, in addition to that, you need to turn your team loose in areas that are low risk. If you're in a bigger business, get with your IT organization and say, where can we step outside where we're not exposing our data and use AI in a way that gets the team excited? We have been able to, fortunately, because we are in the midst of just overhauling so many things, turn certain teams loose to just go out and experiment. And the things that have come out of that are things even beyond that I would have thought of myself, right? So I'm playing with it, and then they're telling me new things, and I'm getting excited. And then we've got that expertise, and that's how we found our director of applied AI. We turned people loose, and he's in our IT organization. He built this co-pilot for distributors that was doing things I could never even imagine. And then I think establishing very clear metrics for everything that you do. One of the very first steps that we tried to take when we got to It Works, and I had some people that I was fortunate to get come over. We established a very data-first culture, that data-driven accountability, where everything has clear metrics, right? We know what success looks like because we know what our retention rates look like. We know how we're going to improve our retention rates. We know the levers we have to pull. And we're very quick to try things, but we're also very quick to shelve things, to say, like, that's not working. So I think having that data-driven accountability allows you to get finance's permission, so to speak, to spend and go a little crazy on some things because they know you're monitoring the numbers. And we've been very fortunate in the sense that we have said, okay, we're taking it out. So we're going to find $1.50 in waste, whether it be man hours waste, and we're calculating all of that, whether it be just general rip and replace for platforms, technology, people, whatever it is, for every dollar that we go spend. So we're trying to be, predominantly as efficient as we can. And that has allowed our finance team and CFO to get comfortable with the pace of experimentation, which is key. And then the most important thing for me, which is, I would say, something I learned from Russ Fletcher, who was wonderful, did an amazing job at Singular, is that we really look for systems over stars, right? We want to prioritize these scalable processes over individual heroics, right? We want to build a culture that rewards consistency, that rewards learning, that rewards execution, but that's also not dependent on any one individual to execute, right? When you have those key man risks all over the organization, as we did, 120 days ago, you're afraid to do some of the things that you need to do, and that just can't be the case, right? Everything has to have a process. Everything has to be in a system. And that's also true because you cannot identify waste if you can't see the system, if you don't know the steps. And you also can't do anything with AI and agents if you don't have a scalable, repeatable process. And those process reviews, right, those Kaizen events that we do, are transformative for the team as we go through them group by group, because they're able to see, oh, this is not set in stone. There's no just because we've always done it this way. We're able to create a system, change the way things are done, work cross-functionally, however we need to do it to create the most robust outcome for distributors and customers. And I mean that in that any waste that's not driving value for customers or distributors, we want out. And that waste could be something that was a pet project of mine or whatever. I'm pretty relentless about that. And if somebody points something out that's waste, we want to get rid of it.
So you've mentioned kind of the importance and need for both having an individual or decentralized approach, as well as corporate governance from a more centralized approach. There's so many different departments this is impacting, so many different platforms. Can you shift into talking, how would you advise a company, a CEO of another company, to start implementing AI at scale in their organization? Where do they start? What does the time frame look like? What are some of those key milestones and approaches?
There's a few places that I would start first and foremost, and I would always pick one area, but the one area that's most obvious and also carries the lowest risk for most companies is starting in the what I would call like tier one customer service responses, right? That's an easy thing, handling product inquiries, handling shipping related inquiries. Those type of things are tier one customer service requests. That's an easy spot to focus in on, and oftentimes a big waste hotspot, so to speak, because you have headcount, you have phone systems. All of these things add up to hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, depending on the size of the business. And that's something also where there's a very established framework in place where even these phone system providers, whether it be Five9 or some of these other ones, have their own AI that you can kind of just jump in and start to build within their ecosystem. So it's not a huge departure, and you can get quick wins, right? You can all of a sudden spin up additional multilingual agents, whether that's something through like NL Pearl or whether that's through Google's voice APIs, however you choose to do it, you can all of a sudden give your distributors a win. You can give your finances a win, and you can give yourself an operational win. So that's a great place to start. Supply chain, if you've got a forecasting issue, if you've got products, more than likely you have a forecasting issue. Now, if you have market leaders doing forecasting, then you definitely have a forecasting issue because the sales leaders, they're generally overly optimistic. So that's an easy place to start as well, but also higher risk because when we were first figuring that one out in a previous business, we had more stockouts as a result of that because we were running it tighter. And we needed to figure out how to weight that appropriately in the models that we had. So that's another great spot. I would also tell you that for a lot of companies internally, there are easy wins as well for efficiency, right? There are a lot of meetings that could be, I would say, largely speaking, executives could be left out of if they had their meeting note taker and they're just reviewing at the end of the day. There are automations that executives can build in Lindy that will save them a ton of time, right? I have one that I've built in Lindy, which is literally just type it in, just like ChatGPT, request it. That goes through all of my emails and goes through all of my meeting notes securely and summarizes them and tells me what I need to focus on that day. So each and every morning I get a daily briefing, which is a huge time savings for me because I know what I need to tackle first and foremost. And it just gives me red, green, yellow. Here are the things at risk. And it helps me prioritize my day. So for executives personally, that's an easy one as well. But there are a myriad of areas. It would just depend on where your biggest waste is. On the product development side, I would tell you that is one of the ones where I get the most pushback, but I also see the most upside because there is a ton of waste in that product development cycle. People are hesitant to take that and put it into AI to some extent because I have this creative element, I want to do this, that, and the other. And I would just encourage people to look at tools like Elicit. When you looking through large amounts of clinical data, there's nothing better. You're not going to be better at AI than going through and discovering new research on different topics. And so that is something that is incredibly beneficial. We used to spend weeks, with R&D and compliance on claims substantiation before we launched a new product. It's now something I can do in one prompt in about 15 minutes with Elicit. And I think it costs $10, $20 a month. So when you look at things like that, they're hugely beneficial and they're really easy to bring into an organization. The higher lift ones where there's waste are really on the field facing side, like what field development reps do. A lot of that, to be honest, is a function that can be much better handled by an equipped AI agent, a true AI agent that knew their data, knew the individual, has persistent memory, which is not something that most agents had until recently. All of those things make it more effective than any FDR that you have at the day-to-day task. Now, there's still the need for those people for more team building, events-based things, but even that is shrinking by the day.
So I'd like to end with kind of a two-part question here. As you've been rolling this out at scale at It Works, what do you feel has been one of the most important lessons through this process? And what excites you most as you look at direct selling, leveraging AI over the next few years?
I would say probably the single most important learning for me has been patience. That's anybody that knows me over the years would tell you it's not something that's a strong suit of mine. you have to bring people along. And in order to bring people along, you need the right people in the right seats who are bought in to that vision of efficiency and that vision of driving value for the customer and the distributor, whatever that looks like. And the first fear is, to your point, is it going to replace me? If I help automate parts of my job, do I become obsolete? And the answer to that question, from my perspective, has always been no. For most people, it's going to free up more time so that you can focus on actual value-added activities for the field and for customers. A lot of the things people are doing, manual data entry, or they're doing repeatable processes, that's not a good use of your time, right? You are more talented than that. But the patience to get the trust of the organization to allow you to do those things in some of the more sensitive areas, is something that does require patience. So I would, especially the executives that like to go fast, like me, I would tell you it's going to require some patience. I would say organizationally, the most important thing that we have done at It Works that's different is building for the long term and not just for the short term hit. And that's something a lot of companies are not doing with AI. They're capitalizing on the quick hit of like, oh, I got this efficiency gain because I used this tool for customer service, or I used this particular tool for distributor enablement. And that's great, and that's useful. But ultimately, what's useful in the long term is not going to be that. And what's cost effective is not going to be that. It's building an agentic org, which means developing your own internal team that is capable of building these tools, that is capable of building agents and groups of agents to handle critical tasks on a day-to-day basis. And that takes a little time. And it takes a little time to make sure you get the permissioning right, to make sure you have the data where it needs to go, to make sure it's not hallucinating, all of those things. But building for the future means that when you grow, which, inevitably, you're going to grow, you're going to expand. And if you don't, that this system scales with you up or down. And it's not like you're locked into some $20,000 a month software contract, or you have to maintain 500 licenses or whatever it may be of some software. You're working within your own internal constraints, your own internal organization. So having that applied AI role, somebody that's thinking about how do I make an MCP server for my own business? How do I handle permissioning of these tools for my own business? How do I establish this so that when I get to my front end website, my commerce, everything that I'm doing is capturing the requisite data that I need to run these tools? That takes a little time to set it up properly. So I would tell people, patience, but also build for the future. So bring people along and then really focus on not where you need to be 6 months from now, but where you need to be 3 years from now in order to be effective.
Peter, I want to thank you so much for sharing these insights, not only at DSU, but going deeper with us today. Thank you for being a thought leader, an expert that we can all draft off of and help raise the entire channel as a whole. And we're going to have the opportunity to learn more from you about the future of commerce November 19th at Young Living's offices. So for those listeners that are here in Utah or along the Wasatch, make sure you join. DSN is putting on an incredible event. Look forward to hearing more from you there. But thanks for all you do. Give our best to everybody there at It Works HQ, and look forward to talking soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in. Please take a moment to subscribe and give a 5-star rating and review to help Direct Approach continue to provide more candid insights and interviews for direct selling corporate executives. And don't forget to register for our upcoming spring events at dsnevents.com. Secure your spot now. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach podcast.